In today's video, I'll be starting with the 50 USD account and spinning it to over 600 USD. So stay tuned to learn how you can flip your own account as well. If you're watching this on TikTok, click this link. If you're watching this on Facebook, click this link or go over to YouTube and type prime_fx to head to my YouTube channel where you can finish this video and also watch more complete videos. Let's get this video to over 200 likes. Now, like usual, we start off the analysis on a higher time frame, which is the weekly chart, and we see a wipe. That's the first thing we notice, a wipe above that high, and in IC terms, he calls it a turtle soup. So it grabbed liquidity above that high and immediately ran back into the range, and then price right now is respecting the weekly bearish order block. So now the reason why it's respecting that weekly bearish order block is on the daily we see it built momentum towards the wipe. So it broke structure above that high, and then it went and sort of raided or broke structure above another high to the turtle soup. So that's the first change of character that we see, and then we get to see that price kept on going down to form a major change of character or a BOS below that low. So after that, it grabbed liquidity below the low, went back into the range, and of course, because price is sort of returning back into the range and it did a turtle soup, gave us a change of character, we want to continue selling with it. So you could have sold at the daily breaker block, but yeah, I know it's a big time frame, but price respected the daily breaker block because it's in line with the weekly bearish order block. So right from the breaker block, we can see price kept on dipping down, slowly building momentum till it broke structure below that low. And the way it broke structure, you can tell there was sort of a powerful movement down, and now price went back to fair in liquidity because it had a huge sell momentum there. So it filled the fair value gap right there, while at the same time it hit the weekly mitigation block. So what we expect price to do is to continue dipping down. So that's our bias, we want to sell. Now on the 4 hour, what you see is price broke structure and then it was headed for the mitigation block on the 4 hours. So that mitigation is also in line with the weekly mitigation block after it filled the daily imbalance. I think you guys saw that. So now what we want to see is price forming structure so that we sell. So it respected that 4 hour bearish order block and then it went down sort of, but it respected the 4 hour bullish order block. So it was squeezed in between the 4 hour order block, like the bearish one, and the bullish order block. So now we want price to just release the pressure and continue dipping downwards. So when it went back, it did a stop hunt above that high, and above that high you can tell there's a small fair value gap. That's the 1 hour fair value gap, and if we actually zoom out or go on a high time frame, we can get to see that there's also a 4 hour fair value gap. So price completely rebalanced the 5 value gaps, consolidated a bit, and then it continued dropping down. Yes, it missed the 1 hour bearish order block, but yeah, we know that price rebalanced and then dropped down. So I forgot to mark out the small wipe it did, but it wiped and then it broke structure on that mini low right there, small time low, and then it continued dipping down to break structure below the higher time frame low. So of course right now the aim was for price to reach for the equal lows, but you can get to see that price did not actually dip down to the sell side liquidity. It hasn't touched the sell side liquidity below the equal lows. So what it did is it returned back into the range, and now we want to try to capture the sell into the imbalance. So you see that's sort of my plan on the 4 hour. That's usually price has to dip down into the imbalance and then hit the mitigation block. If it wants to continue shooting up, it goes up. If it wants to sell, it continues selling. So that's what I want to do, sell into the imbalance. So price went back and filled the fair value gap within the range, and above the fair value gap, of course, there's the 4 hour order block. And we want to sort of sell within this 4-hour order block. And if we look deeper into the 4-hour order block, we also get to see that not deeper, but on a higher time frame, there's a daily rejection block, and that's where we want to be selling that's where we want to be selling. And I forgot to mark it out, but there's a sort of a wipe that's going to happen above, sort of a mini high right there. It's going to sell into the expansion that it created because when price expands, it created sort of an imbalance, so it has to also fill the expansion and then dip down into the imbalance it created down below. So I started placing my sell limit orders above a small high. I did not highlight it. I can't highlight stuff I can't show a lot of stuff on the phone, so it's sort of hard for me to have shown you guys the high, but I think I could have. I just placed it above the high because price has to go up that high, wipe, and then start dropping down immediately afterwards. So I was placing my sell limits here, and I completely pegged the account, went in aggressive, of course, like I usually do, and you have to see what happens afterwards. So this is afterwards. You can tell price, it wiped the small high, respected the daily rejection block, and it started dropping down. It had to continue dropping down, but because of target reason, I reached my target. I started filming and I was preparing to close my orders. So what I thought was price had to sort of react off of the 15-minute breaker block right there, bullish breaker block, or the 1 hour OB, and then return back up, and we will continue selling with it. So that's what I had in mind, not only because I clocked my target, but because I also just wanted to maybe capitalize from a return, and then we continue selling down with it. It was a clean trade. I liked it. So from crash 500, we move on to jump 100 index. Now on to jump 100. We can see in the history there is the crash 500 we made profit from. We're at 253, and on the weekly chart of jump 100 we get to see price respected and filled the imbalance, the big imbalance it created, and at the same time it hit the weekly bearish order block. So it had two confluences there, weekly bearish order block and a weekly imbalance. It dropped down to break structure below there, and as soon as it broke structure below there, it went back to fill the fair value gap, and at the same time while it filled the fair value gap, it hit and respected the mitigation block. So price dropped down, and currently it wiped below the low, and it's going to do as it did before. So what it's going to do is to respect the weekly bullish order block, return back into the range, fill the fair value gap, and then drop just like it did above. So let me show you what it did above. Is it filled the fair value gap. So what it's going to do is to also fill that fair value gap, and at the same time respect the mitigation block right there, and it's going to drop down, and our aim is for price to drop down into the sell side liquidity. Now that sell side liquidity, below the sell side liquidity or below that low, there's an imbalance as well. So price is drawn to that area or zone right there, sell side liquidity and also an imbalance. So we have to look on a smaller time frame, which is the daily. We get to see that price is inside the daily breaker block right now, and it's sort of trying to build momentum to drop down into the imbalances that we highlighted. So price did a stop hunt, and then it hit, you see that trend line, that's our weekly bearish mitigation block, and it's in line with the 4-hour order block. So that area is strong, that's why price respected it. And now after price hit the weekly bearish mitigation block, it respected it, and then now it's sort of tumbling down. It dropped down towards an interest point on the 4-hour, and this interest point is the 4-hour order block. Now it respected this 4-hour order block after it created sort of a channel, and of course when you create a channel, there's bound to be trendline liquidity below or above. Now it shot up, and you can see right now it's taken in the 4-hour order block. It shot up, and currently it created a sort of, it wiped above that high, and at the same time it hit the 4-hour order block. So inside that 4-hour order block, I'm going to show you. So it has to drop down immediately from there. Now inside the 4-hour order block, we see that there's also the 1-hour breaker block. So price has to respect there and continue dropping downwards. So this is the channel that I was talking about, the channel that was created towards the 4-hour bullish order block, and then it went and hunted the trendline liquidity above that trend line. So yeah, I wanted to sell right at this. I think I actually sold it and I failed, but after price went and cleaned the trendline liquidity, I knew prices to drop there. Now the aim right now is for price to drop down to the sell side liquidity below there. So below the sell side liquidity, there is also an imbalance. So you can tell there are a lot of imbalances that are below there, and prices to continue dropping down. And there's also the sell side liquidity that prices to reach for. So from the 4-hour, weekly, and almost all the time frame, there was a huge imbalances that were being created, and prices to fare in below there. Now we continue our analysis on a smaller time frame. I want to sort of pinpoint where I want to sell. I don't want to just jump into the sell. And on the 5-minute chart, we get to see that price did an SMS. I know this is a stretch, but it did an SMS, and then it broke structure below the low, or sort of like a change of character. Now it has to return back and then fill the fair value gap while it hit the mitigation block. So that's our mitigation block, and this is the fair value gap, and it's going to drop down from there. Now specifically where I want to sell at is the inner sort of breaker block or a mitigation block. So yeah, I wanted to sell the 1 minute OB, but let me just highlight on the 5-minute. There's the 5-minute fair value gap, and there's the 5-minute breaker block. So that's where I want to be selling at, but it's vague sort of, and this is not one of my best trades, I would admit, before you see. But it was a stretch, but it was sort of the best I could come up with at the moment. So now for entries, you guys know that you could not enter the distance between the current price and where you can place your sell limits. It has to be far on jump 100. So I had to wait for some time and enter at market execution. So it finally went up to my 5-minute breaker block, and it was inside the fair value gap, and this is where I decided to sell, and I went in aggressive. So we will see there afterwards. And afterwards, you can tell this is not my best trade. Price did not immediately respect my entry level. It had to sort of shoot up and then sort of stop hunt. It hunted stops above that high, and then that's when it dropped down. So it wasn't a clean entry, but yeah, at the end of the day, we were in profits, and it's because we had a nice analysis. It wasn't a clean one, but yeah, right at this point, we're around 300 and something USD in profits, and I was satisfied. I wanted to actually capture the return and sort of re-entry. So you see prices to go back inside and fair in that imbalance, and then continue dropping down. If you know SMC, you know what I'm talking about. That's what I planned to do, but me and the client decided to just capture some sort of profits, and then we'll continue with it from there. So thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't.